Dr. B here. Please give it a listen, a watch. Fantastic Deals and Dreams pilot series. I interviewed a lot of folks in the real estate and or business world. I hope you enjoy this episode. Enjoy. Hi, Roddy. Welcome to another edition of the Dr. B Show. I am here, Dr. B, with the great Dr. Travis Parry. Travis, how are you, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Good, good, good. I'm excited to have you on my show. As you can see, Prime Donald's behind me. But let's talk. It's about you today, man. So tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So I got into the financial planning. You and I have a lot in common, financial planning, back in 2001. Um, and I started working with couples. I really developed a niche with business owners who were just doing great things in many different industries. And I started to see that couples that I brought in to discuss, investing and insurance stuff, they weren't really on the same page most of the time. And quite honestly, I had zero training in this. So I started taking classes, going to school. Long story short, it led me to doing a master's in psychology and a PhD in family and human development so I could really understand this marriage and money. I wrote a couple of books. I found that business owners a lot of times they're burnt out and they're addicted to work. So I wrote this Achieving Balance during the COVID era. And then I just finished writing Marry and Grow Rich, which is my newest book about how couples who are business owners can grow their business without losing their balance by being on the same page financially. My wife and I, we walk the walk. We're not perfect in any stretch of the imagination, but we have 8 children. We've been married for almost 23 years. And we're just trying to do our best to live that life, to have great balance, to be physically healthy, spiritually connected, and really being on the same page financially together. And we love it, and we have a great life, and we're very, very blessed.
I love that. God bless 8 kids, man. My handful with a pair. You know, you plus six there. I love it. I love it. I love it. Congrats, man. So hey, so you did mention schooling, right? So you definitely went to Brigham Young University with a bachelor's of science in sociology, master's of psychology, and then of course you went to the University of Phoenix and got your doctorate in family and human development, right? So how
Yes.
has education played a role in what you're doing today?
I think if if I didn't have the educational drive, if I didn't want to know why things worked, like education would be a total waste of time, an absolute total waste of time. Now, what I mean by that is that I think a lot of people go into education thinking that they're going to be distilled upon themselves something greater because if they just show up. Okay. And I've taught at the university level, and I know the students that just show up, they're there to know what's on the test. They're there to know, like, what is it that I can do to get by, right? Because their social life is so important. And for kids go to university, students go to university, one of the number one reasons for the social. That's it. Like education has become a totally different realm, and I'm talking about formalized education. So I make this difference I actually Dr. B, I didn't ever intend to go to college. I was the very first person in my family to complete a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD. And so for me, this has been a journey of why do I even need this? When I have always felt deep inside like I've desired this learning, I've desired the knowledge, and it's come in many forms. So formalized education is one. But I've always had mentors throughout my business and career. I've always found mentors to help me to level up. I know you were on my show, and we've talked a little bit about mentorship and having some people to help us, to not have to recreate the wheel, start all over again. And I think that's super super important for everything that we do. It's that drive that drove me on why do people care about what they care about? That drove me into psychology. That really put me in a place where I wanted to understand why people do what they do. And then my PhD was a search for knowledge on couples and money. So it really just became this drive to help me propel forward. Now, if I could continue to learn, which I do, I can, I probably have several PhDs, but I have to provide for my family.
That's true.
um,
Exactly.
right. So it's like there's got to be some point, like there's some balance in this life, and so for me, I have found that writing and compiling information, it's a different form of learning. So now I'm in the phase of my life where I'm trying to give back through the work that I've done with Achieving Balance and Marry and Grow Rich, and there are many others to come. So I find a lot of joy in now collecting the research, putting it together, and putting it into the hands of people that really would like to learn from it, as I've been able to learn on my own.
I love it. We'll get into Make Time Institute in a minute. I'm actually gonna throw you a little curveball here, but I'm only kidding. When it comes to being a baseball junkie, so you wrote Married. What is it?
Marry and Grow Rich.
Married and Go Rich. I was gonna say Think and Go Rich, but that book already came out already.
It was no that is the play,
There's
man.
a
That is
player.
that is the play on that, because the Think and Grow Rich, this was written years and years and years ago,
Sure.
and the idea here is that it's very personal development oriented, and I really encourage married couples, if they're married, then they really should be having personal development together. They should be lining that up. And the research that I've done has found that successful business owners, when they're married, they need to be on the same page financially with each other, which means they need to develop together, not just alone. So I think and Grow Rich, he was onto Napoleon Hill was onto something there. But interestingly enough, if you dive into Napoleon's life, and I write about this in the book, he ruined two marriages, one of his own and one of his sons, while he wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. So the guy made a ton of money, and yes, he's responsible for so many people changing their lives and doing really good things. But you have to wonder, I'm like, man, what was he doing? Well, why did people around him really struggle with their marriage when he's so focused on this? And I bring up this point, which I found only in my master's, my last article, my last paper, my last project in my master's degree was I found this research that showed that this whole idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of focusing on personal development, that actually is not our highest motivator in life. There were psychologists, evolutionary psychologists, child psychologists. These weren't necessarily marriage and family people. They found that the number one motivator in our life is not personal development, but it's actually being a parent. And it's actually having a solid marriage that you keep for long term. So it kind of came back to, well, hold up. If we're talking personal development all the time, personal development, we're selling that as the solution. Maybe that's actually what's creating marriages to fall apart over time, and this issue with gray divorce. And now your kids are out of the home, but no, we don't know each other. Who are you? I don't know. Who are you? Like, what's our marriage really built on? But the couples that were really successful were the ones who were working together, the ones who were on the same page. And that not only helped them with finances, but helped them with every other aspect of their life.
I love that. I love that. And is that tell me a little bit more about how does that intertwine with what you do at Make Time? Uh, yeah, Make Time Institute since '07. You've been doing that for a long time, and then now you have the book. So how does that all intertwine together?
Yes. So, Make Time Institute actually was a placeholder name. We're actually in the process. We just created a DBA called Balanced Growth.
Love that.
Balanced Growth Incorporated is the DBA for Make Time Institute. When I was going full time with this coaching endeavor after my academic career, I was like, I just need a placeholder, and I realized the methodology that I use is called Make Time Method. You make time for things that are most important in your life, and that's when you're gonna feel balanced. Balance isn't an equilibrium. Balanced is a psychological feeling. You know what this feels like when you're like, oh, life is good. Like you're working out, you're connecting with God, you have a great relationship with your spouse and kids, and your business is going a fantastic direction, and you're paying off debt and saving money and buying real estate, like you're doing all the things, right? Well, we tend to think that balance is somehow, doing awesome in every area of life. Well, the reality is if the top two or three areas in your life are doing really well, and you're making time for them, you're giving the time that those highest priorities in your life need, you will feel balance. Even if these other areas are stressing you out, even if they're maybe not the best at the time. But if you're doing the most important things, you'll have a balance psychologically. At least that's what we found. So the make time method has really been able to give me this play of like, well, let's call us the Make Time Institute. We have coaching. I do speaking from stage. I have a podcast, but we're shifting this all over to balanced growth because what I've found is as I've interviewed over 1,600 business owners on podcasts, on book interviews, etc., is that they don't want just to be balanced. They want to grow their business and have balance. They want to have their cake and eat it too. So that's the direction, and that's my mission is to help business owners to grow their business and keep their balance while being on the same page financially with their spouse.
I lost you for a minute. It's okay. I was like, I couldn't find you. All good. No, I love that. I love that. Um, you started in '07. I kind of just fast forward a little bit. Can you take it back a little bit? You did tell me explaining how the name came about. Tell me a little bit about like you worked a little bit in corporate, a little bit, and then how did it start in '07? Sorry, I always like to know the origin.
Yeah. So I've always been coaching. Back in 2007, I really incorporated financial coaching into everything that I was doing. And I started to be trained by Bill Backrack, Dave Crenshaw, and then I even started working for Nightingale Conant. Joe Vitale, Tony Robbins was part of that group. I was success coaching for their businesses, and I learned a whole lot during that process, um, and really started to understand the personal development world. At the same time, this is when I found that article about personal development versus couple development. And I was like, I need to take this to the world. I need to be the guy who can really help other business owners and their spouses really develop together. So then I started the academic, direction, but I was coaching all along the way. I was part-time doing that coaching gig. It really wasn't until 2017 where I said, you know what, no more academia. I've learned what I needed to learn. It's time for me to sink or swim and jump into this full time. And we've been full time ever since, and really enjoyed it. And just trying to impact as many lives as possible, and help business owners to grow their business.
I love it. I love it. Now I'm gonna fast forward back.
Oh,
Keep
you're
on
good, man. You're
I'll
good.
go back, going forward to the 2025. So you and I are in common, right? You come from the financial service space or that space still, and I used to come from that space. So one of the important steps is always the discovery, or also known as a fact finder, right? So you know, it's important to have both parties involved, right? They always used to say, try to have the husband and wife, because if not, one will be you'll the out as far as the objection will be, oh, I got to make a decision with my husband only, or wife only, right, or spouse only, right? So you avoid objection, right? So your studies, you studied this and got a doctorate in family and human development. Do you see a correlation behind, with business owner couples versus non-business owners, as far as the fact finder and making decisions as couples?
I've really made my focus and my research, and the point of research is, with business owners.
Business
However,
owners.
the academic aspect of this was not focused necessarily on business owners.
Got
What
it.
we wanted to do is so much research is out there about why people divorce, why marriage doesn't work. And I wanted to take it from a strengths-based perspective. So we did I found research that was already been done on couples, and I used that for my dissertation and said, okay, what is working? What are couples that are being successful in their marriage and and their finances and generally what are they doing? And what we got to the bottom of this was is that couples had shared values, which meant it wasn't just that they agreed on everything. It was that they had values that were tying them together. A lot of this is religious focused. A lot of the research is there on religion. But it's not necessarily always true because you might go to the same church with your spouse, but you have very different beliefs at home, or how you live that religion is very different. Okay. So we looked at parenting. We looked at how, they thought about money. We looked at a lot of these different variables, and we found that when couples had this overlap, where their values overlapped, when they had the shared values, those compared to those who didn't, the couples that didn't have shared values, it was significantly different for psychological happiness, for marital satisfaction, and that was all connected to financial stability. So, yes, there's research for anyone who is married on if you have shared values, you're going to be successful in life. But for business owners, I wanted to then say, okay, how does this work for business owners? Well, business owners want to grow business. They want to have time to balance their life. And the key connector is that if the two of them are on the same page financially. So I made the connection with, well, business owners need this probably even more than those who aren't, because they're working sometimes 70, 80, 90 hours a week. And that can be a killer to that relationship.
And as a quick follow up to that before I move on, and we'll wrap it up, is when there's a disconnect to that, what are some of the repercussions of that?
Yeah, the biggest is fallout from the marriage. It's
Right.
divorce. It's So this is probably the biggest reason why I got into this research. We had family members that were divorced. It came out of nowhere. It was my mom's parents, and it was really tough for my wife. And my wife and I decided we would make some major changes in our relationship because of it. We didn't want that, right? And we never got into marriage to have that to be the option. And it just came out of the blue. So I think that was a really big, emphasis for me to study of kind of the why behind it. Um, and I found that as we researched into that and really got deep into what is making good marriages tick, that so much of that was again these shared values, these overlaps that we just need to work on more. Okay, so now we have that shared value. So now let's create shared goals. Now let's focus together. You and I were both in financial planning, but how often did the spouse show up mostly uninterested in what's going on? I don't
Yeah.
care. I don't know. What do I? And because of that, you're pulling teeth with couples. Financial advisors know I've interviewed thousands of them. They feel the same way, and then it's a struggle to keep them on that same page. So, man, if I can be of help to married couples, that's my true and ultimate mission, to keep them married, enable them to have the best relationship humanly possible.
I love that, which pivots into my next point from the. Tell us a little bit about your show, the Balanced Growth Show. How did that start? And I suppose it has very similar values and mission, right?
Yeah, yeah. The Balanced Growth Show it used to be the Balanced Advisor podcast, and I was really focused on financial advisors because I came from that realm. You and I both came from that
Yeah.
realm,
Yeah.
and I saw a lot of advisors who were trying to help couples. They had problems themselves, and they didn't know how to fix it. So they're the blind leading the blind, and their balance was really off. In fact, most business owners, they're 3 to 5 times more likely to be a workaholic than anyone else. So yes, I could help, W-2 employees and help big organizations, but my calling was really to help these business owners because they're way more likely to be divorced, way more likely to, speaking of ramifications, to have, horrible health habits, and more likely to commit suicide. Like Dr. B, there are a lot of ways that this could go if they don't fix it. And so I have found that some of my outreach is the Balanced Growth Show, which I've been able and fortunate enough to interview you about your new book on the Balanced Growth Show. So please,
Thank
you
you,
guys
thank you.
check that out and check out Dr. B on my show. But really, it's also a way for me to connect. You're a networking guy. The Balanced Growth Show is a way for me to connect with other incredible people like yourself where we can help to further this mission of helping married business owners.
My final thought or final question before you doing like what are your thoughts on folks that are on the fence and there's no alignment with what you discussed earlier, whether it's the business owner, the marriage. What advice would you give those folks on the fence or struggling or challenging a little
Yeah,
bit?
sure. So we've done I think I've mentioned over 1,600 interviews with business owners. There are three kinds, three groups of these business owners. The first is the business owner who is like, you know what? I'm afraid to grow and scale my business and bring this out to, my concept, my solution to more than I can handle. And I saw this a lot with financial planners because like, well, if I have 100 or 200 really great clients, I'm good. I can cap this, I can move on. They don't see the potential for them to continue to spread their influence. And it's not about the money usually at that point. At that point, it's just influence. Like, who can I influence, right? How can I help more people? The main fear there was because they liked their balanced lifestyle so much. They didn't want to sacrifice that to have greater impact. That was their fear. The second group was balance what? Who cares? I throw that out the window. I don't really care about, balance. Again, a lot of them thought about balance in a time equilibrium sort of thing. Like, well, I've got to make time for everything in my life equally. No, it's not true. You make time for the most important things in life, and everything else finds a way. It fills in the time. But Travis, that's not. There's no way you can do that because I know I work way more than I would, spend time with this, the other. Yeah, you might spend more time at work. So the make time method says, let's make you super productive. Let's focus on the things that are most productive. And then let's utilize the extra time for these things that are most important in your life. And if we can do that, we can really help people have balance. So then I found the third type. The third type are those who were living that already. They're like, oh yeah, I nailed balance. I work in my most important aspect of my work schedule is in these top five areas of activity. I call them the work sweet spot in my book, Achieving Balance. I identify how to build that out, how to create an ideal calendar and work on this consistently. Okay. But then they're like, but I'm also grow my business because I actually spend more time in the things that are most important to me. So I can afford and I can afford a team. I can delegate. I can do all these things. So that mindset on this third type was like, no, balance is super important to growth. And growth actually helps me have greater balance. It's a symbiotic relationship. But the thing they pointed to the most is what I've been talking about this whole time is, but the only way to keep that the way it is to have a fantastic relationship with my spouse. And that is what I want to bring up is spouse is not a liability to your business. Your spouse is probably the most important person in your business, whether they're in it or not. They're the most important person to help support you. Because there will be times where you're going to feel a little bit out of balance. Maybe you work a little bit more. Maybe you are traveling in a travel season. And that support, if it's not there, it's going to be to the detriment. But the opposite is also true. If you're home and you're working and you're not present and you're not being there, like that support is going to feel one sided. You have to step up as the dad, as this husband, and support the spouse. So, for an example, I know for a fact my wife loves music. And so when she's like, I really want to do this thing with music, or I want to sing, I want to be in this choir, I'm like, I will bend over backwards, do everything. I will move my schedule. Because if I don't support her in what she loves, then how do I stand on anything for when I need her to support me in my business or the things that I enjoy? It is a two-way street. And I found that when I give, speaking of servant leadership on your book, right? When I give to my spouse and I serve her, life is so much better. We both feel it. Marriage is not a 50-50. It's 100%, 100%. And there are days where I might be at a 10%, and she might have to pull me up. And there are days, the opposite. But it's 100% effort. And I really feel strongly about that you can have balance. You can 10x your business. And it really depends on that relationship between you and your spouse.
Happy wife, happy life, as they say, right? I
Right.
love that. On that note, where can people find more information about the book and about you?
Yeah, man. So you can get Marry and Grow Rich at marryandgrowrichbook.com. So marryandgrowrichbook.com. You can hear all about my podcast, my speaking, my blog, everything if you go to balancedgrowthinc.com, balancedgrowthinc.com. We'll have everything there, and my books and everything that you want to follow me. I'm also active on LinkedIn, so I'll have all my socials and everything there. But that's kind of the main website, and I appreciate letting me be on the show and chatting about balance and
Right.
growing the business. And so great to be here, Dr. B.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on my show. And I appreciate your time today. We have no idea.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Dr. Travis Parry, everybody. Thank you so much. Hey, Dr. B, hope you enjoyed this limited edition Deals and Dreams pilot. I hope you really enjoyed it. Hope you got some insight. And remember, as Mike Lee would say, you are one big deal away from making it happen. All right, take care.